Hi, this is Rob from Akai Professional here today at the DJ shop in Southampton to look at the brand new update for MPC Live and Akai Force. This update brings Ableton integration to MPC and Force, allowing you to take all the power from your MPC and Force hardware and combine it with the Ableton software. What we're going to do today is show you both setups on both hardwares. MPC Live is with us today and we'll cut to the Force afterwards. But what we're going to do is show you the setup, which is identical on the computer, and then we'll show you the setup and how you can control Ableton from MPC Live and Force. So first things first, let's look at how we install the software and set it up to work with the hardware. Let's look at the laptop here. You can see that we've got this piece of software here, which is our professional network MIDI driver. So to get this to work correctly, you need to install this on your laptop or your PC. This is free to download from the Akai Professional website alongside the firmware for both hardwares. Once you've installed the software, you need to make sure that your laptop and your Force or MPC is on the same network. To do that, you just jump onto your settings and connect it to either your broadband, which you can use, or your personal hotspot on your phone, which I'm using today. You can also use it with an ad hoc network created via an Ethernet cable to a router, but today we're using the personal hotspot. Once it's connected, you can see here that the MPC Live has got its serial number or name and then an IP address. Once you can see that and it is on the network, you can actually jump into Ableton to set up the configuration. So inside of Ableton, you just jump to Live, Preferences, and then you can see here on the MIDI pane, I've got Control Surface. What we do here, we jump to Akai Force MPC Control Surface and select it. It's also worth mentioning here that this update only works with Ableton 10 and above. Reason being, it has the installed scripts to use with this hardware. Next thing, make sure the input is set to network DAW control, output DAW control. And you can see here, I've got Force MPC input on remote, and I've got Force MPC output also on remote. And that's the software side of things set up. Bear in mind, it works exactly the same with Force. All we do on the Force side of things is jump into the network MIDI, make sure it's on the same network, jump onto Force as opposed to MPC Live, and then refresh your project and you're good to go. So first, let's look at the MPC Live and how we set it up with the hardware. So you can see here, this is the home screen. And what we do to jump into the network and set it up to the Wi-Fi is just press Menu, go to Settings, and choose the Wi-Fi pane. Once it loads up the available networks, select the one you wish to use and then connect, or you can disconnect and reconnect to another network of choice. You can see here, I've got it connected to my phone and it's already good to go. Next thing is we jump back to the home screen and we want to make sure that we are synced up with the Ableton session as well as being able to trigger it. To do that, you go to Menu and you go to Ableton Link. And you can see at the top here, I've got Sync set to Ableton Link. And as long as I press Link on the laptop, you can see that it's now linked up. So this means anything I play on my MPC Live will actually be synced up to the Ableton session. Obviously this was already available on previous firmwares, however this works seamlessly with the Ableton integration. So what we do now, once we've connected it, is jump to Menu and Live Control. And now you can see I have all of my clips from my Ableton session directly accessible from my MPC Live. To access the whole project, I can use the bank buttons at the top left of the hardware to scroll up and down. This means I can access a larger project without worrying about using all of the 16 pads in one setup. I can also launch scenes by holding 16 levels. That allows me to trigger them using one pad. Let's start triggering some clips. So if I jump into MPC and I control the BPM, that is completely in sync with my Ableton session. And let's add some drums. So triggering is one thing, but there's much more to the MPC Live integration than just that. You can see here I've got an icon which is below the launch screen, and this shows you the levels. So this means I can actually control the levels of each individual channel inside of Ableton wirelessly with very low latency. So now if I press play, you'll see the levels. And I can use the touch display to bring them in and out however I'd like to. So it's extremely easy to do and extremely responsive. At the bottom, you've got two more panes. Press main, you can see your solos, mutes and arms, which are great for live recording or recording elements in the studio because I can arm the session without touching the laptop. I can also solo and mute directly from the hardware. The last pane is sends. This means that if I've got any sends and returns set up which I wish to use in live performance, I can send them and adjust them by using just the hardware, either by tapping or using the cue links to control them as well. The last thing to look at on here is device control. This is great for accessing all native Ableton plugins and controlling them via the hardware, again wirelessly. So selecting device and choosing a channel which has got an effect or a instrument on there. You can see here I've got an EQ. I can actually select part of the parameter, use my finger to move up and down, and that will move that point of this EQ. And that will work across the board and for every parameter within that EQ. So for example, if I was to jump through the devices and I had multiples, I could use the device plus or minus, or I can jump through the banks. So you can see here that I can actually control the filter type now, just using the display. I can jump further through to the EQ band 2. Make sure that's either on or off. Let's put that back on again. And we can choose how steep or what type of EQ curve we're adjusting. This feature really comes into its own when using operator or a built-in instrument. So if I jump to sax winds over here, you can see that I have got a built-in operator patch, which I can actually operate using the touchscreen to change the parameters. I also jump through the oscillators and different filters. So that's how we work inside of MPC. We're going to jump over to Force and show you how that's set up. In terms of the software, it's exactly the same. We're just going to cut to the way that the hardware works. Okay, so now we're in Force and I'll show you the same setups we had on MPC, just in the Force environment. So what we need to do, like before, is jump to Menu, Settings, Wi-Fi. And once the Wi-Fi is connected, you'll see it's connected to my phone, just like we did with the MPC. And then we jump into Menu. And before we do that, actually, let's just check what firmware we're on. If we go to Info, you can see here that we're on 3.0.4, which is the update we need to get this Ableton integration. For MPC, it's 2.7. And like I mentioned earlier, you can actually download all of this from the Akai Professional website. In regards to actually updating your firmware, you can do that either via a USB stick or via the Updater software. So we're ready to go. We jump into Menu and you can see I've got a live control icon now. And you can see I've got all of my Ableton session on my screen, also on my pads. This is really good because you can see everything visually on both sides. I can also use all of the clip stop buttons at the bottom, record arm, solo and mute in the same way I can inside of Force, but with my Ableton session. So again, like we did before, let's start triggering some clips. Let's start with a sample and add some drum parts. Again, jump into my mixer screen. Bear in mind it's multi-touch, so I can use 2 fingers. You've got the same main screen here with the solos, the mutes and the arms, and the send control. And again with the device control, I can do the same thing. Jump into Operator or any of the built-in plugins and control them using the screen, or using the knobs and coders down here. So I can use the filter envelope for the bassline, or if I go into the EQ, you can see I've got all my EQ elements mapped onto here. So So down the bottom, as I said, I've got clip stops. So if I start these three, I can stop them. I can solo them by holding solo, record arm as well, and then there's a mute button as well. So if you're used to using Force and Ableton, this will be a breeze to understand. Simply just load up the hardware with the software connected to the Wi-Fi, and then you can go in tandem mode. So you can use Force as well as your Ableton session in the same world. And to jump back into your Force environment, just press menu and go into there. So if I've got plugins running or Force projects, I can run this in complete tandem with my Ableton session. It's also worth mentioning that with the control of clips, you can also flip into a mode where you can record your content in the arrangement view. So using the transport control. Go to settings, you can see I've got arrangement. You can go back and forth between session and arrangement, but then you just press record and that will start recording on your project. And let's launch some clips. Jump into arrangement. You can see them all being recorded directly into the screen. Change the drums. You can see it's all recorded in the arrangement view. This is great for people who are recording instruments or synth which are on the other side of the room, so you can set up your project and control it from Force or MPC as the brain, making it a much easier workflow all round. So why use Ableton integration with Force and MPC? One of the great reasons is on stage. I can have the laptop directly next to the sound engineer. I can trigger clips, backing tracks and click tracks all remotely using the hardware. This means that the Force or MPC can then be used by itself with the sounds inside of it, making it more of a sound module. This is great for Force because I can set up all my internal synths like Hype, have a keyboard connected and play those parts live, but then trigger backing tracks which are larger than on Force and have that run completely in sync with my session. So that was a really quick overview of the brand new features on 2.7 for MPC and 3.0.4 for Force. If you've got any further questions on this or any other Akai Professional products, give the guys at the DJ Shop a shout and they'll be happy to help.